Hi, Christy. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Today, we're going to be looking at virtual learning with databot, which has been a lot of fun, actually. Something I've been experimenting with and we've been doing with some teachers, and we've developed a lot of materials around databot because it turns out it's a very friendly and easy to use device for students at home. And right now, with so many people still learning from home, it has turned out to be a really good fit for that. So I'm going to give you some examples today, a little bit about myself. I've been doing STEM education for over 30 years. I started teaching Lego robotics back in 1988, and since then I've done everything from coding and digital arts to life science, and helped develop STEM labs, maker spaces, all kinds of fun stuff. So I've been working with kids and teachers in a lot of different environments for many years. This new virtual approach is actually very exciting because it opens up a lot of possibilities for kids that think weren't able to access makerspace and hands-on type activities, as easily before. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to be going over today. In the webinar, I'm going to start by introducing a software. It's called phyphox, and it's the one that we use for data visualization with databot. So databot is a wireless all-in-one sensor device. It's very simple to use, very rugged. It was designed for classroom use, and it was designed to be really super simple for people. So, basically one touch on your smart device should connect to databot and pre-configure your sensors and allow you to actually start doing experiments. So, a big part of it is just being friendly and easy to use. And I think you'll really like phyphox. One of the things that I like about phyphox is it's free. It's a university product that was developed in Germany. It's an active program with lots of people using it all over the world. And we'll talk a bit about it here in just a second in more depth. But I think you'll enjoy seeing a little bit of both of those products. I'm going to give you some examples of how simple it is to use after we get to the point where I'm actually giving you a demonstration of some of the materials here. And then we're going to go through an actual distance learning model. So after you're familiar with the materials I'm using, I'm going to show you the curriculum model that we've developed and the materials that go along with it. We'll actually have enough time to do at least one sample activity. 30 minutes isn't a lot of time. The course materials are designed in basically 50 to 60 minute segments. So we're going to do just one example so we can kind of see what a demonstration looks like. And we're going to go over some tips about how to prepare for smooth delivery. I've actually been teaching online classes to practice all of these, and have had some very fun experiences. And it's definitely a little different model, but after you've practiced and experienced it a few times, it's really fun. And actually, it's a new kind of way to interact with your students. And then we'll wrap up with a few minutes for Q&A. So let's take a look at phyphox. So as I mentioned, it's from a technical university in Germany, over 1 million downloads. It was passed in January, I think. So there's a lot of educators using it all over the world. Actually been translated. The UI has into 16 languages, and experiments can be translated into all those languages very easily. And one of the things I like about it is the ability to create easy to access custom experiments around something like databot. So again, it's completely free. It's available on either iOS or Android. And in fact, during this presentation, it literally takes less than a few minutes to set up both phyphox and then connect it to databot. You could go to the Play Store or your App Store right now while we're going through this presentation and download phyphox and play with it a little bit. I highly recommend it because there are things you can do with it even without external sensors like databot. So there's a lot of fun resources and activities for you to use. And then of course the last thing is it does connect wirelessly to products like databot and some other external sensors. Here are a few screen captures from phyphox. So on the far left, this is what the typical screen looks like when you download it. So it comes up with preloaded sensors. And by default, phyphox is accessing your internal sensors, the sensors that are inside your device. So if you're using an iPhone, it's going to be able to use your iPhone camera as a light sensor. It'll be able to use your microphone as a sound sensor. Most smart devices will have things like an accelerometer built into them. That's how your phone knows if it's being tipped portrait or landscape. So you can do all kinds of interesting experiments with the accelerometer and the gyro that are built into it. Anyway, lots of built-in experiments that you can do just with your phone. And these are fabulous for introducing to kids online because they don't have to have any other materials. All they have to have is access to a tablet or a smartphone. And you can see from the menu, again, on the far left is what we're still looking at. Each one of those little icons, you can just tap on that line and it'll open that experiment and preload the sensors for you. So for example, the central screen that I've got displayed there is a gyroscope. So you would tap on the gyroscope icon and it's going to open that up, and you tap on the little play icon at the top. It shows as a pause right now, but it's very simple. You tap on that and that's what's going to begin streaming the data. And you can move your phone around. If you've downloaded phyphox by now, you could actually try this experiment. As you move your phone, you're going to be able to see the gyro responding. So very simple. You can actually be displaying data within seconds. And then last thing on the far right, each one of the experiments, you also have some built-in resources. And depending on who's developed the activity, there can be quite a bit in there. So for example, this one just gives you some background on the pendulum activity. There's resources including videos online that you can tap on. There's a growing wiki of activities. With databot, our experiments actually include links back to the experiments themselves, the videos, the support materials. So that's very handy. At one touch of a button, you can have some background material available as well. So a couple more screen captures here. This just shows how easy it is to export data. So you can capture the data on phyphox itself and do some analysis on it. There's a screen coming up, which I'll give you an example of a linear fit analysis. But very simple to use in terms of exporting. So you can see you pop up your little menu there. You say, hey, I want to export. It gives you some different formats that you can use. So Excel, for example, is the most common. You select export data format, and then you can share it in a number of ways. You can email it, you can save it to a file, you can use AirDrop. I use Apple, so I can just AirDrop it to my computer. And then you can open that data up. It comes out in a very nice, tidy format with everything labeled, and then you can start manipulating and analyzing the data. So again, super simple to use and access. And this is the snapshot of the analysis tools I was mentioning. So for example, in a photosynthesis activity that we're doing around carbon dioxide, and that's actually part of the demonstration we're going to do today in this class or in this webinar, you can do simple analysis like this. So this is an experiment we actually did just this week. We were capturing the rate of carbon dioxide consumption against different types of light. So you can see here, you can pull up that particular graph, you can do a linear fit to it, and you can pretty quickly calculate, what was your part per million rate. And then you can do it again with another light. You can change different variables, and you can see what kind of outputs those are. So again, really simple to use. There's lots of sophisticated things you can do in terms of data analysis when you export that data and take it into other programs. But in terms of just using it on your smartphone, it's a remarkable product, really simple to use. So next piece of the puzzle, in terms of what we're using for distance learning programs, is databot. And databot is my company's product. It's a multi-sensor device that's really, again, super user-friendly. Connects to phyphox literally with just a couple of taps of the icons. You select which experiment you want. It's going to look for databot, and then you connect, and then you're basically off and running. It preloads the sensors, which I think I'll be able to actually show you some of that when we switch over to the video demonstration here in a little while. But yeah, very simple for students to use. There's no complicated setup or any of those kinds of things. And the fact that it's wireless makes it also very friendly. So it'll connect to your smartphone, and you can do all kinds of fun experiments in and outside. And you can also put databot into containers, and that's some of what I'll show you today. Actually, we're going to put databot into a mysterious cave and demonstrate some some scientific attributes of gases using databot. So the sensors that are on board are listed there. We don't have a lot of time to go through everything, but you can see that there's a pretty good arrangement or assortment there. Comes with an external temperature probe that you can drop into a beaker or a stream. databot itself is not waterproof. It actually has penetrations in the case for airflow so that air and sound and things like that can get to the microphone and the different sensors. So there's a humidity sensor. There's ultraviolet. It senses the A and B wavelengths and also calculates a UV index for you. There's ambient light in lux, carbon dioxide, volatile organic compounds. In fact, carbon dioxide is the one we're going to use today in this demonstration, so you get to see it in action. An altimeter, which is calculated from air pressure. It has your physics package, which is your accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, which you can use for all of those fun physics experiments and acceleration, rotational energy, things like that. And then you've got a microphone built into it. So databot has a lot of different possibilities in terms of applying it to your curriculum. You know, we designed it so that there was a nice assortment of sensors for being able to do a little bit of physical science, some chemistry, some life science, some earth science, and some environmental activities. So in terms of its capabilities, it's a really nice survey product. It's how I like to refer to it. It allows you to do a little bit of everything and get kids involved in analyzing, capturing, interpreting data, which of course is a critical function these days in terms of critical thinking and getting kids familiar with how to look at data and understand it. So our entire world now is, of course, running on data. These are a few examples of how to use databot. The Cave of Dogs on the far left, that's the one we're going to look at today. That's a fun curriculum module, which I'll actually show you some examples from. And it's all about the weight of air and density. The next one over there, attaching databot to a air rocket. So an Estes air rocket we launched. This was a lot of fun. We were using a different software called Google Science Journal, which I'll show you the other software that databot works with. It'll actually connect to a number of different platforms. We use VFox because it's the simplest and friendliest, but there's lots of other things you can do with databot if you're a more advanced user, or maybe you're specifically using Google Journal, Science Journal. So those things are available. It's also designed to integrate into lots of other platforms. You can see it there on a Sphero RVR. Kids are running a mission trying to find volatile organic compounds. Where are the dangerous fumes in the room? You can also use it in offline experiments. So if you don't want to use it with the Bluetooth, for example, and you want to send it up in a high altitude weather balloon, which we have a number of schools doing, you can do that. It's got built-in 8 gigs of memory on an SD card that you can store all the data. And then when it gets back from its mission, you pull all that data off and analyze it. So again, lots of ways to use it. Quick snapshot of it integrating with robotic systems. databot has connections for Lego, Fisher Technic. You can see my little model there where it's got some Lego legs stuck on it. So it's actually got pinholes on the bottom, so you can easily integrate it into your Lego robots. Also into Fisher Technic, if you've got Fisher Technic materials. And then we include a Velcro plate if you want to stick it on a drone or a Frisbee. You know, lots of ways to do it. It's using the Velcro there with the Sphero RVR. In terms of the electronics, we provide all of the open source material in terms of the pinouts, how to create your own cables. If you're in a makerspace where kids might want to hack sensors and add them to databot, that's all available. You can also use the open communications ports there for integrating it with other robotic controllers, for example, VEX. So lots of capabilities again. A little bit about curriculum, and you'll see an example of this. We try to make data something that's really interactive for kids. So it's not just charts and displays, it's actually using the data, interacting with it. So we create different kinds of experiences where kids are challenged to use the data or, you know, come up with a particular result. The databot game is one of the things that we create a lot of different activities around. So for example, one, Huff and Puff, is to try to deliver the highest carbon dioxide level possible. And this is a bunch of science teachers at a conference, and they were trying all kinds of things. They were exercising and putting their bag in a head anyway, there's lots of fun ways that you can take data and make it almost a manipulative where kids can work with it, and then they suddenly really understand it because it's a very physical thing. So here's last slide on databot, some of the different software it works with. And I mentioned Excel. You can connect it directly to Excel and stream data live into that. Google Science Journal, lots of ways to use it. And again, phyphox is what we use because that's by far the friendliest. So now let's move on to actual virtual learning. So we've looked at phyphox a little bit, and we've looked at databot a little bit. Again, these are materials that are really good for activities at home because probably almost everybody has access to a smart device of some kind. And databot can be, we've got some organizations that are looking at basically shipping it out on a rent basis. So students receive it, they have a security deposit, they go through the camp, they return it afterwards. And since it's so tough, you can do many cycles of that. And it's also very portable, so it's really inexpensive to ship and store. So databot fits in the palm of your hand, and you can literally ship it for a few dollars postal. So it's got some really neat attributes for kids to be able to actually do hands-on science at home without, a lot of different concerns that you might have about things getting broken or not coming back in one piece. Very few moving parts with it, and very few pieces to lose. So let's take a look at our camp model. So we've just released a science camp called CO2 Science. And as a camp, we provide a number of different modules that are all interdisciplinary. So we're covering different aspects of carbon dioxide. So in one unit, Ready, Set, Reaction, we cover chemical reactions and how to make CO2. We also talk about endothermic and exothermic reactions, and you can actually measure and display those using the temperature probe. Cave of Dogs is the one we're going to look at here, and it's about density of gases. So kids actually learn how to weigh air. They realize that air has weight, gases have different weights. And then we look at this mysterious cave in Italy where a phenomenon actually demonstrates the density of gases. And we'll actually show that to you today. So these other activities, or the other modules, we've got photosynthesis, we've got air quality, and we've got human respiration. All of those are just different ways to approach looking at carbon dioxide. By the time a student goes through these set of units, they've looked at carbon dioxide from a number of different ways, and they've used their sensors and their data analysis in a lot of different ways. Because, so for example, in Breathe, you use not just your CO2 sensor, but you're using air pressure. We actually have the students build a model lung, and they actually see how when the diaphragm moves, the air pressure inside your chest cavity changes, and that's what draws your breath in. So really fun things like that that bring data to life. So the curriculum module demonstration, the model, which I'll show you actually what the curriculum looks like here as soon as we switch over. But you basically have an hour, 50 to 60 minutes of virtual presentation with students where you go through showing the materials, how to do the experiments, discuss the concepts. And then the kids go off, they do their hands-on lab, and then you would get back together for like a 30 to longer debrief session where you can talk to the kids about the results, and they can share their adventures with their experiments, because as science goes, a lot of times they don't work or things go south on you. So, that's basically the model. With these 5 modules, it was designed to be like a week-long camp. And so you would do a different one each day. Kids would do those experiments. And by the end of the week, you've spent a good 2.5 to 3 hours a day with those students. And they have a pretty good exposure to the concepts and objectives within these. So the resources we provide, and this goes into the tips, which I'm going to show you here in a moment, is just preparation. So we provide a PowerPoint for each module, so you have step-by-step demonstrations and what to do next with the kids online. There's a parent-student handout that includes the materials in the background, and because prep at home with the parents is important. This is something that you want to follow up on to make sure they have the materials available for the experiments. And then the curriculum plus support videos, all of that good stuff is online so that you can actually see the experiments done, and the kids can access those even after the presentation that you've done, so that it's pretty easy for them to reference back if they didn't understand something. This is an example of the parent handout. This is a screen capture of part of the parent handout that shows the materials, and then the terms and things like that. So presentation tips, and I'll actually give you some examples of this. We're about to switch over to just a live video mode so that you can actually see this in action. But quick set of tips, practice your presentation, including how you store and move things in and out of the class itself. So within the camera view, I've set mine up, for example, everything's on the right-hand side of my table. As I go through the curriculum, I move things from the right over to the left after you're done with them and get them out of the way. And I organize things basically in the same order, the queue of which they're going to be presented. Being online, you have to be really organized in that sense. The first few times that I've presented, I actually realized some shortcomings, and you really have to practice your experiments, because you'll be surprised at the science sometimes. The smallest things can throw off your experiments. Always check your lighting and sound. If the lighting, for example, there's nothing worse than having backlighting and you look like Deep Throat or something, your face is completely black and you're just a voice. So you want to make sure your lighting's clear. Do what you can to protect your bandwidth. So if you're teaching from your home, for example, make sure that during that 60-minute class period, you tell your kids and your husband or whoever else to not be watching videos or to be doing crazy things on the internet, because you might need that bandwidth. And the worst thing that can happen, of course, is you lose your internet connection. And then finally, study your presentation carefully and work with your software. You got to practice it. You got to practice how to change views, how to manage your waiting room. You want to mute all your students when you're actually doing your presentation. Otherwise, it'll sound like a herd of cattle going through there. And you have to do all that gracefully. You don't want kids to feel like you're muting them because you don't hear from them. You have to tell them that, well, we just need to be able to hear. So we're going to mute everybody. But that doesn't mean we can't talk. We've got the ability to chat and turn people back on when you have questions. And the ability to disable video. If something perhaps inappropriate is going on in one of the screens or from one of the students' homes, you want to be able to quickly turn that off. Anyway, those are some quick tips. This whole presentation, Christy's going to send out afterwards, so you can look back on these as well. And you'll see a few examples here as we go through the next piece. So let's see here. The next piece, I'm going to switch over to different video or a different slide presentation. Here we go. And I'm going to be able to show you our curriculum as well. So we're going to go to our website, so you can actually, and you can go to this website after the webinar as well, so you can see this in person. Oops. Dogs, Cave of Dogs. I can spell. There we go. So this is the actual PowerPoint that students, that you use with your students when you're walking through this particular class. Again, is 60 minutes, and you walk through the different demonstrations. We've got about 5 minutes left for me to do a quick demonstration. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch over to video so you can actually see an experiment. And while we're doing that, oh, looks like Christy, I think our video's turned off. It says I can't start the video. So if you want to take a look and see if you can fix that, what I'll do is start going through the curriculum. And if we can't get the video back on, that's fine. The videos are on here. So that
okay, hold on 1 second.
Get it?
1 second, I think I might.
Okay. Anyway, this is the front page of the Cave of Dogs. So the module itself consists of the overview and background information. You've got 2 quick activities that students do. And these are, again, hands-on experiments. These are the things that they break up and go off and do afterwards. And then you've got a little bit longer experiment. And then you've got some extension activities if you want more than the time that I was mentioning.
Robert, you should be able to share yours now.
Yeah, it keeps saying you cannot start the video. Host has stopped it. That's okay. We're running out of time, so let me just go through and use the videos. We've only got about 4 minutes left. I want to make sure we've got some time for people to ask questions. So the again, on the front page here, you'll notice on the overview, it's got all of your objectives, the materials you need, terminology. There's a really nice extended set of materials down here for teachers as well, how to prep, You've got your NGSS standards, got all kinds of fun things, guiding questions of how to use, of what to do in the unit itself. And this was one of the things I wanted to actually demonstrate. So for example, you've got a QR code, and phyphox, you basically open up the ability for the QR code. You scan that particular code, and it'll actually load up 5 experiments. So they're all prepared, and the students will have immediate access to, for example, the photosynthesis has carbon dioxide and LOX sensors. You just tap on it, and it's off and running. The endothermic, exothermic reactions loads CO2 and temperature. So they're all easily available. And again, very friendly, easy. So let's actually move on to the Cave of Dogs experiment. Here we go. Got 3 minutes left. I think we've got just enough time to actually give you an example. This is actually what it's going to show if our video is working. So the Cave of Dogs, I was mentioning that the Cave of Dogs is about the density of gases. So it's actually a real place. This is actually the entrance to the Cave of Dogs. It's located in Italy. And interesting, this is a mystery that's over 300 years old. It was actually on the Grand Tour. And the mystery, of course, is there's gas, CO2, that's being emitted from a fumarole, which is a volcanic vent. And that vent puts CO2 in there. And of course, CO2 is more dense than air, so it settles. And there's about a meter worth of CO2, really high concentration. So if you go in there with your dog's going to asphyxiate. It's going to pass out because it doesn't have any oxygen. But a human can stand up and walk around just fine because they're above that 1 meter level. So that's the mystery. And the way that I do this activity with kids, we kind of go through and we talk about the weight of air, and we kind of lead up. They're all clues. So by the end, you ask kids, okay, have you solved the mystery yet? And usually they figure it out by about halfway through the class, what's going on. But here's our example. In fact, our little Cave of Dogs actually has this little cutout that the kids can do to build their own Cave of Dogs at home. Let's take a look at the experiment. Here's the setup. I'm using a little, it's a cereal container that has a airtight top as well for other experiments. But the way you set up your Cave of Dogs, we've got our example of a fumarole right here. So we've got our volcanic vent. We have 3 candles, and they go out one at a time in progression as you pour CO2 in there using this vent. And the CO2 is made in a previous activity. It's in PDQ1, which is a very quick activity that shows kids how to do a baking soda vinegar reaction, capture the CO2. We talk about, chemical reactions in general, where the CO2 is coming from. And then they've got the ability to actually apply the CO2 in this and other experiments. And now with 1 minute left, let's watch the Cave of Dogs experiment, and you'll actually be able to see it running there with phyphox, and you'll be able to see how easy it is to use. So there I'm tapping the correct icon, which is just carbon dioxide. And we've connected to databot, and we start the data. And there's our carbon dioxide balloon, which we filled up in a previous activity. And again, this is the 3rd activity in that 60-minute presentation. So you have 2 short ones, one where you make the CO2 using baking soda and vinegar. Second one, you actually weigh air and talk about the density of air versus carbon dioxide. And then you use the CO2 you made in that chemical reaction to simulate the Cave of Dogs. So the candles are the illustrators. So as you put your CO2 balloon onto that straw, which again simulates our volcanic fumarole, it's going to seep CO2 in there, and you'll see the CO2 level increasing on the right-hand side. So phyphox is connected to databot wirelessly, and there you see, oh my gosh, we've got gas coming into the cave, and the dogs are in danger, and you can see the cave as it fills up. The candles go out due to the increased CO2 concentration. And it's a great demonstration because it fills from the bottom up. So you can see that the gas is indeed more dense than air surrounding it. So that is the Cave of Dogs. That's our quick demonstration of our curriculum model and how databot works with phyphox. And at this point, I will turn it back over to Christy for any questions that we might have out there.
Hey, Robert. Yeah, we do have some questions. As a teacher, what support materials are available to help me get the most out of my databot?
So the curriculum model I just mentioned, these are the things that are available. So the activity we were just looking at, each one of these modules includes basically 5 activities plus all the teacher support material. So the 5 activities are organized into, first of all, 2 short activities that we call PDQs, pretty darn quick. An example of a PDQ is actually using the baking soda and vinegar to generate CO2, and you capture it in the balloon, and you talk about the chemical reaction behind that. That activity takes, between 5 and 15 minutes, depending on how deep you want to get into it. So there's 2 of those that kind of lay down some groundwork. And then the third activity is what we call the experiment, which is about 20 minutes long or so. And in this case, the cave of dogs is the experiment. So the kids actually build their little simulated cave of dogs. They cut out their model. They put the candles in there. They get the whole thing assembled, and then they conduct the experiment that I just showed you. So that's kind of the series. The last 2 activities that are available in each one of those, there's challenges and collaborations. So the collaborations are really the data game I was telling you about, where you take kids and they've learned something about data, and then there's different kinds of ways that you can challenge them to use the data or use their scientific knowledge to actually get a particular output. Challenges are similar to that. For example, in trying to think of a good one, with carbon dioxide and human respiration, you're challenging kids to get the highest CO2 level possible. How can they do that? Can they do that by holding their breath the longest? Those are good examples. So yeah, each module has all of that material I was just mentioning. So you've got about 2 hours of activities that could be done virtually, and then you've got another 2 hours or so with the challenges and data game that can be done.
Okay. Another question is, do you connect with Raspberry Pi?
You could connect this, yes. I've got a CTE teacher who's been talking about doing it, because you can use what's called I2C, and it's a communications protocol. So yes, you could connect your databot directly into a Pi and use it as basically the data acquisition package for it.
Okay, and the other one, you might want to just go back to your slide, but what other programs or apps will databot talk to?
Oh, other programs and apps. We designed the thing to be really open architecture, both physically and electronically. So since it's built on Arduino is a very open platform, and there's an entire ecosystem of Arduino products and software out there. So for example, Scratch is a programming environment that was developed at MIT. It's really a wonderful tool for getting kids started in learning computational thinking. So there's an Arduino connection to Scratch. So you can actually use Scratch with databot as well. So that's a good example.
Okay, and then what else is included with the databot kit?
So we've actually got that in a supplementary slide. There we go. There's your kit contents. And again, this PDF is what Christy's going to send out to everybody, but it includes the little soft case that you can see there. Includes the waterproof temperature probe, which is in the upper left-hand corner. There's your Velcro plate as we go kind of counterclockwise around databot. There's a lanyard. Databot comes with a little hook and connection for that lanyard so that you can put it around your neck, or you can use it as a pendulum. There's a charging programming cable. And then on the right-hand side there of that picture, you'll see the SD card, which comes pre-installed. A lot of people never use that because they just use it wirelessly, but it's there, and you can actually do offline experiments like I was mentioning, sending up on a weather balloon. So that's the kit. The way the configurations of the kits are set up, you can buy just one, or you can buy a twin pack. And a twin pack comes with double the accessories and 2 bots in the same case. And one of the nice things about, the way we've designed this thing, it's super portable and easily stored. So they're small, light, and they don't take up a lot of space. So a class pack of 10 of them, literally is a little bit larger than a shoe box. So easily stored and shared.
Okay, and then how durable is the databot with kids? For instance, is it something that could be distributed and collected for like 3 or 4 different students?
Exactly, yeah. That's one of the things about the virtual learning possibilities with it. It would be easy to send out for example, the CO2 camp, and then have kids return it, and then you do it again with another group of kids the following week. It's extremely tough. There's no moving parts. It's all solid state, of course. And then it's got a polycarbonate case that is literally, we have not been able to break it. It seems indestructible. And we've launched it on rockets. We've done all kinds of things with it. Now, having said that, if you hurl it against a brick wall, it's probably going to damage some things because the sensors can be, affected by, G forces and too much shock. But generally for a drop test or things like that, it's really rugged. And you can see there's very few parts that go with it. So it's pretty easy to keep track of everything. It's not like a robotics kit with 372 pieces.
Okay, and then another question, if students don't have access to a smartphone, are there any other types of device that they could use, like a Chromebook or?
Yes, Chromebooks. In fact, with Google Science Journal, we've used it a lot with Chromebooks. And FIFOX runs on Chromebooks, and we're working on the Bluetooth connection with Chromebooks. I believe we'll have it working shortly. Right now it does not, but databot will connect to Chromebooks with Science Journal.
Okay, and then speaking of Bluetooth, if you were going to talk to Arduino, would that be done via Bluetooth?
I think you probably could. The I2C I was mentioning is a port that's on the top. So it's a physical connection that you would plug into your Raspberry Pi, for example. But the Bluetooth protocol, the data stream that comes out of it, you should be able to capture that and use it in other ways, which I've done. So for example, we use a Bluetooth dongle that we've connected to databot to stream data live into Excel. Excel has a plugin called Data Streamer that came out of their STEM program that allows you to connect things like Arduino devices directly to Excel, and you can stream live data in. And we did that all wireless using Bluetooth and a dongle. So yeah, I think it's entirely possible. It just depends on how geeky you are.
Another one, will it talk to NetLogo?
NetLogo, I'm not familiar with that.
And as far as the experiment, why not just slowly pour the CO2 into the beaker with the candles? Also, what do you do with the sodium acetate?
Repeat the first part of that with the experiment.
Why not just slowly pour the CO2 into the beaker with the candles?
Oh, okay. Why do I use the straw? Is
Yeah.
probably good, very good question, because this I assumed that would work with this, and actually did test it before I did it online with some students, and it didn't work. And because before I had been doing it with this long open vase, which was not quite as tall as that container I showed you, and I would pour the CO2 directly into it, it worked just fine. I've seen it done with like those clear plastic shoe boxes as well, where you put candles in there, you just pour the CO2 in and the candles go out one at a time. In this particular configuration, this container, it turns out, is tall enough and narrow enough, and there's 3 candles in there. They create this column of heat that is pushing all of the air up and out. So what I found out when I was doing this is the candles went out in a reverse direction. So they went out from the top down, because the gas is more dense, it's pushing it down. But you got this big ball of hot air that's pushing it up and out. So had a great conversation with students about that afterwards when we figured out what was going on. But yeah, science in action. That's why we have the straw in there. And then with the other question in terms of disposing of the sodium acetate, is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just dispose of it. Yeah.
Okay, and that looks like the end of the questions.
Great. Well, I'm available for more questions. If people want to contact me through you, Christy, just let me know.
Okay, and I'm sorry, just one more question popped in. He said, have you tried dry ice with the candles?
No, I have not done that yet, but yeah, that sounds like an interesting experiment. There's also an experiment you can do with the sodium acetate that I've heard about. I watched a video on it called, I think it's called Hot Ice, and it looks very interesting, but haven't gotten to that one yet.
Well, thank you so much, Robert, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I will be sending that email out with information, but if you do have questions, you can call us at 888-561-7521, or you can email us at info@studica.com. And thank you so much and enjoy your day.